Welcome back, pizza people. Hope you've been keeping it cheesy. Hollywood Pizza here, and today we've got some exciting coverage from the tournament on May 15th. That was the Slice of Alchemy. We've got some coverage from JohnLikesGames and Hamhocks42. You can find all their content down below in the description, as well as all the deck lists from this event. And I hope that you enjoy the top 8.
Hey, look at you here,
Yes.
folks. The top 8 coming in quick. Looks like we've got Tiamoko against IGotDead. Looks like we are on mono green side. We're going to be getting aggressive, folks. Look out.
Excellent. So this is going to be mono green, looks like, versus Naya midrange is the name of the game
Okay.
there. All right.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Well, there's our Prosperous Innkeeper. We were just talking about you.
Yeah. Which, again,
Ooh.
this is an interesting hand, I think. The missing the third untapped land is brutal. There's a lot of power level here.
Oh, absolutely. So in this situation, what Tiamoko probably wants to be doing is playing out that old growth troll. Or maybe one of the mammoths, but probably that OGT is probably what they want to be getting going. But that's not an option because, yeah, missing that untapped land drop, but playing out the mammoth as a land makes sense here, and then putting out an additional ranger class. They have an opportunity to pump. I mean, if they draw into a forest here, they could uptick both ranger classes or get the Uvenwald Oddity online. Either way, they're happy.
For sure. Now, I don't think anyone's going to be too baffled by what's going on the mono green side, but what is happening over here on Naya midrange? Well, recently, when we've seen Naya, it's been runes, right?
Right. Yeah, Runes has been the name of the game in the Naya deck for, I mean, or in the Naya colors forever. But with the Cabaretti from Streets of New Capenna, we have all kinds of new options for Naya. One of which they just played with his Fleetfoot Dancer
Whew.
for 4 mana. It's a 4/4 trample lifelink haste.
Oh my word. That's a
I
lot of
mean,
text.
it's a lot of text and it's all good. Yeah, it's
Yeah. Oh
yeah, that
boy.
card is very powerful.
For sure. I actually played a little bit of that in his or Explorer, and boy, it turns out it it just does everything you want it to do. The
Hmm.
haste is so relevant because it's essentially a burn spell a lot of the time, right? You know, they're just
Yeah.
taking the damage on the face, but it's also got lifelink, so it helps you in the race. But it's got tramples, so you're going over the top. It's so good.
Absolutely. Well, and here we're seeing the Fleetfoot Dancer with the assistance of the Wandering Emperor, all ramped into by the Prosperous Innkeeper. Now we're at a situation where this mid-range deck is out aggroing the aggro deck, and
Oh
they're
boy.
they're at 28 life, while the green aggro deck is sitting here at 12. So they have to go after the Planeswalker. They don't really have a choice. So that's 5 damage that they didn't put against that life total of 28.
All right, so pick a seat. If you were saying I want to win a tournament today, would you want to be sitting in Tiamoko's seat or I got dead seat?
I mean, we're still in game one, so anything can happen. But I gotta say, I think IGotDead is in a pretty nice position. They still have, well, now 3 cards in hand. They're playing out Tybalt, the Tybalt that we,
Wicked
I
Tormentor. Yeah.
personally, yes, Wicked Tormentor. Thank you. The one that I'm not as familiar with because we just don't see it quite as often. But here it is, removing one of the wolves.
Yeah. Oh boy. And notably, folks, this is a plus, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah. So that plus ability, it either deals 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker, or deals 4 damage directly to that creature or planeswalker's controller, but the person on the receiving end gets to choose which one. But I mean, that's a rough choice.
yeah, talk
You're not
about pick
happy
your
either way.
poison. I mean, that feels bad.
Yeah, it does.
So,
And yeah.
looking like the Tybalt's going to go away. How do you feel about this attack? Because, darn it, your opponent's at 33 life. I know you got to do something here, but that Fleetfoot Dancer is still hanging out there as a 5/5.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I mean, getting rid of Tybalt makes sense, I think, because you do need to get it off the board. Otherwise, that plus is just going to tick again, or they're going to have an opportunity to uptick Tybalt and go get, or no, that'd be, yeah, and go get another creature from Tybalt's spellbook. So that could be dangerous potentially. But that Fleetfoot Dancer is definitely the MVP of this game. There's no question. It's been carrying IGotDead pretty hard. Now, to be fair, Tiamoko has done a good job of rebuilding.
Oh,
That was brilliant.
Exacxies.
So the Agancho marked 4 damage on the blocker, meaning that 4 more trample damage got through. That was perfect. That was
Oh my goodness.
absolutely perfect.
Oh my goodness. So fair enough. Looks like fairly standard looking mono green sideboard here, which is to say that, you know, they've got some hate cards that cover the bases, but they don't want to overboard, right? You know, they stay aggressive style things, maybe protect my stuff a little bit, but for the most part, don't want to dilute my game plan. And looks like these are these snakeskin veils? Is that what's coming in?
Yes, I believe those are snakeskin veils. Yes, with the Japanese card art style.
Inscription of Abundance looks like it's coming out. No, maybe looks like one came out. Yes.
Yeah, looks like one came out. Going on a 3 ranger class. Interesting.
Is a little bit on the slow side, given what we saw already. Now, looking at this Naya mid-range deck, there's a surprising amount of interaction here, right? With the Brutal Cathars and the Tybalts, and then the ability to go and get them with Storm the Festivals and things like that. Like, despite the fact that it would kind of feel like, oh, it's aggro on aggro here. Mono green doesn't have a lot to bring in the way of protecting their stuff, and Naya midrange should be doing a little bit of removing their stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Boy,
those are some rough mulligans. Yeah.
Okay, so pick a seat.
Oof. I mean, IGotDead is up a game, starting with 6, and Tiamoko having to mull down to. I mean, okay, that's a good draw, to be fair.
Arguably, that might be the best draw to try and win the game that Tiamoko could have had in the entire deck. The ability can come down after Tenacious P, so it gets the trample, it gets the vigilance. No!
IGotDead. It was all Tiamoko had. But here comes another one.
Okay. All right.
Now, you don't have the Tenacious Pup buff, but
yeah,
you still have a pack leader on the field.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the Blizzard Brawl in hand. So.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. Hold on just a darn minute.
Yeah.
That's Snakeskin Veil, folks. And Blizzard Brawl is going to be interacting as well. There are 3 snow-covered forests on the battlefield here, so.
Yeah, so Fleetfoot Dancer does get in for 1 attack here. However, there are, as you said, Blizzard Brawl is online. There are the requisite snow-covered lands. So that knocks out the Fleetfoot Dancer. Unfortunately, because that is a fight, IGotDead does still gain 4 more life, but the Dancer's off the field. I'd say that's worth it. Yeah.
It is. Does return the scoreboard to even, as much as life total can be considered a scoreboard. Oh, no!
Oh, no.
All right, the hits just keep coming. Turns out Fleetfoot Dancer is a good card. You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here
it's crazy, right?
Yeah, oh boy. Good heavens.
Yeah, so at this point, I mean, Tiamoko has to be aggressive. There's no question about it, but they also need to refuel their hand because they're down to 2 cards, and they didn't have much to begin with. So they're going to activate the Werewolf Pack Leader, buffing its power up to 5, which means it and Tenacious P there get, combined to activate Pack Tactics, draw a card. Not a bad situation. And they are going to bolt in the Turn Timber Symbiosis so they have access to the Snakeskin Veil.
Yeah, it makes good sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, but here comes Elspeth Resplendent.
What do you do here? Is it just... Oh, wow. Okay, they just minus. Okay. All right, I get behind this.
Rahilda with a shield counter. It has double strike, or it has first strike during the day. And now it has a shield counter as well. That's rough.
All right, so what's your play here? Just like Ranger class level it up?
I mean, yeah, Ranger class level it up's not a bad idea, and then maybe swing the pack leader. Well, can you afford to swing the pack leader? Yeah, that's
you're relegated to chumping. Old Growth Troll. I mean, it could trade with the Fleetfoot Dancer, but it won't. The Fleetfoot Dancer is almost certainly going to the air this turn, right?
Yeah, presumably, because because Elspeth can grant flying, and that's the one thing the Dancer doesn't have already.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then vigilance the following turn as if it wasn't bad
Exactly.
enough. You know? Oh man, keyword soup.
Yeah,
But
it's pretty crazy.
I just don't see it. I don't think it's in the cards here.
Okay.
Yep.
Tiamoko taking the attack.
Do you pump? No. Okay. See, but now Elspeth stays on the board because you didn't give trample.
Right.
Tiamoko's likely thinking, you know, has a plan here. I would suspect. Oh no.
Yet another planeswalker.
It just
Ouch.
keeps getting worse. You gonna take it on the chin here or let your
Oh,
creature?
you can't. I don't think you can afford to. As much as as much as you don't want to lose the old growth troll, I don't think you have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, it literally means you die, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh boy. Luminarch Aspirant comes down. Just a who's who of making your life miserable.
At this point, yeah. Oh, and so instead of lifting off the Fleetfoot Dancer, IGotDead has elected to give Rahilda lifelink.
I mean, I
It's
don't think
fair.
there's any wrong way to eat a Reese's in this particular case because IGotDead just can play as cautiously as they want. Also, folks, do keep in mind there is a giveaway going on with gems. So pre-release code and 500 gems in one giveaway. Make sure to get your exclamation point pizzas in the, or I'm sorry, just pizza in the chat. So don't miss out. Don't miss out. These are legitimate codes. So definitely check them out.
Absolutely.
Oh boy.
Wow. So yeah, and here's what we're seeing with the mono green aggro list. When it has to act defensively, it tends to stumble. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. Well, like so many good aggro decks, it sets out to set the tone and be the aggressor, and it just never got a shot in this match. Those Fleetfoot Dancers having lifelink and trample and haste, I mean, all of those keywords are exactly what that card needs to have to be successful in this matchup. And we watched that card specifically just absolutely dominate in this matchup.
Absolutely true. Tiamoko's game plan now, I believe, is pray that IGotDead can see or forgets to attack or something. Maybe disconnects.
Yeah, maybe the disconnect, exactly. To be honest, in that situation, I probably would have taken the damage from Tybalt as my way of conceding. Yeah, concede with a little bit of style. Yeah, that was all you could do. Those dancers were just way too much to deal with.
Agreed. Definitely a good matchup though, or a match, and it was sweet to see both of those decks. Neither of those, for the record, folks, you should know, I would not consider mono green aggro to be a tier deck. This is definitely kind of a strategy that's trying to take advantage of the other meta decks. And in fairness, remember, we're not casting rounds 1 and 2 here. This is the top 8, right? The mono green aggro list did exploit the meta to a certain extent, right? And to get here. But yeah, Fleetfoot Dancer, it's a heck of a Magic card, folks.
It really is. Well, and to your point, I mean, the Naya mid-range list also here in the top 5. So I mean, clearly the main threats of that deck are the Fleetfoot Dancer as well as Rahilda, with the tempo piece of Brutal Cathar and Luminarch Aspirant being kind of the support for those two threats. And man, we saw that game plan fire perfectly there.
Absolutely. Made it happen. Looks like we are in another match with MagicBeard and Shylax. Is this runes on runes? Is that what's happening here?
This is runes on runes. We are watching all of the runes. So we will see who gets to pop off first, who gets to assemble the Runeforge Champion Jukai Naturalist combo or get some Hollow Haunting shenanigans going. I mean, we all know the runes deck. This deck is so explosive, no matter which iteration, whatever specific list you're working with, they all have Runeforge Champion. They all have Jukai Naturalist. Some have Hollowed Haunting, like we're seeing with MagicBeards here. Some don't. You don't necessarily need it to be successful, because with Generous Visitor, Kami of Transience, Showdown of the Scalds, you in one turn you can have a 1/1. You can have a 1/1 enter the battlefield and be a 15/15 trampler with lifelink. That's attacking.
Yeah.
Within
absolutely
moments.
wild. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, we should note, I think, that the main decks here are the same, but The sideboards are not. So we don't know what sorts of changes have been made post board, and we are in game 3. It's all this is for all the marbles, and boy, it looks like Shylax has all of the possible aggression they could ask for.
Yeah. No, if I had to pick a seat in this moment, I definitely think Shylax has the advantage. And they elect to go with the Hallowed Haunting rather than the
Why
Touch
is
the Spirit
that,
Realm.
Graham?
That's a good question. I mean, to be honest, that feels like kind of a greedy choice. I feel like Rip Apart you got to keep on top too. Although to be fair, by next turn,
These
there may
creatures are gonna
not be a target.
you know,
Yeah,
right?
there's probably not going to be a legal target for that.
Oh, Showdown of the Scalds.
Oof.
Ay. Arguably the best card in this matchup, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And I believe that's a Hallowed Haunting that just got hit off the Showdown of the Skulls as well, because and it only costs 2 white because of the double Jukai Naturalist, which is interesting, as well as Kahilda.
Now, they don't have 2 white.
True.
Because they're struggling for mana a little bit, but how do you win? Where do you go with this Rip Apart?
I mean, I think you have to go for the largest Naturalist, but
You're
even then, but if you don't the Showdown, yeah, no, I don't think there's a right answer here, unfortunately.
So I would say go after the largest. Okay. They're going for the line of, I'm going to try and win. I can respect that. That's a fine choice to make, I think. Oh boy, it just does not feel like there are good options here.
Yeah, I mean, the Circle of Confinement in hand is definitely useful, so they'll be able to get some power off the board, from Shylax's side, but that is a
It's got to be the
it's
Generous Visitor because they'll just grow both creatures to lethal, right?
right.
With Showdown of the Skulls this turn, or potentially could do that thing. But like, man, oh man, the Generous Visitor effect is still online because this is Chapter 2 of Showdown of the Skulls, right? Every enchantment that's cast, or every spell, as it were, is going to be putting counters. Oh no,
That's it. I mean, that's the game right there because the one blocker is going to be taken off the field. Yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree. I think your comment about the Triumphant Adventure and Nadar is really like dead on, because both of those cards, especially since the Triumphant Adventure buff, both of them are just good cards, even if they're the only card in your deck that's venturing. The fact that there are a couple of others too to really help get additional value and really give you some of the selection, and even give you an opportunity to possibly go through one of the larger dungeons like the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. But even if you are just running Fandelver as many times as you can, you're still getting good value as a direct result of that. So it's, yeah, no, and at the end of the day, a 2/1 Death Touching First Striker for 2, yeah, I'll play that. That's
absolutely, absolutely. All right, folks. So you may not, if you blinked, you missed it, because the production team on the ball today. We're into the semis immediately. Just boom, right there. Players are ready. They're like, we've been playing Magic all day, and I'm ready to get some food. It's time. Let's play some Magic right now. DarkBone, Pablo got immediately back in. So that's right. Last time we were getting to see Esper midrange from the Esper midrange side. We are now watching Rakdos midrange side. And we did just watch a Rakdos sacrificey something or other-y style deck get beat by this Esper midrange deck, and darn it, DarkBone on a mulligan here. How do you feel about this start that we see from DarkBone's side?
I liked it a lot more before they drew that last land.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought on that, because at this point they have the Voldaren Epicure, or sorry, the not the Voldaren Epicure. They have the Bloodtithe Harvester, which is a great 3/2 for 2 that is removal in its own right. But I was just about to say the only thing they really have to sack to that Deadly Dispute is the Blood Token, which would effectively turn off the Bloodtithe Harvester, but they're choosing to use it to get rid of the Luminarch Aspirant right now. Good call, I think.
About that?
I think that's a great idea. Like,
do too.
yeah, I like that. I think the Luminarch Aspirant, even with the nerf in Alchemy, ooh.
How do you feel about 2 more lands on top of a 2/0 1-mana and artifact?
I mean, ouch. I mean, that's rough. I mean, DarkBone needed some action here. They needed some gas, and they just didn't hit it.
Ay. So the good news here, folks, I do not think DarkBone likely to get stuck on mana anytime soon. I believe DarkBone is going to make every land drop for this foreseeable future.
You know, that is the silver lining of this particular situation. That's very true. And the synthesizer does get to draw another card. Hopefully not another land. Oh, another
Okay,
swamp off the top. Ouch.
this is one of those games where, again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but the feeling is that you've been targeted for defeat. Where no matter how you shuffle these cards from here on out, it's the client is working against me. And I understand. No. I do not for a minute believe that the algorithm is actually sophisticated enough to be like, oh, this time it's you. You're going to lose. But it feels a little bit like that when you're sitting in the seat.
It absolutely can. And you know what? And I understand like those conspiracy theorists about, the shuffler truther movement that's out there. Like I kind of understand where they're coming from. And I've had those runs on the ladder where like this game must be out to get me. There's no way. It's like because I'm just having such bad luck. Like I understand the feeling, exactly what you're saying, the feeling.
Yes.
I think you're right that nobody's being targeted. The algorithm isn't like it's not that it's not that the programming is not intelligent behind Arena, but I believe the shuffler is random and sometimes it just does not shake out your way.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Because I've had plenty of moments with physical cardboard where I think, man, who shuffled this? This is awful. I can't draw anything to save my life. I've been in that situation too, and the shuffler had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I mean, for what it's worth, like my take on the subject is even if that were true and WotC really there was some crazy tinfoil thing, like trying to, I don't know, make new players feel good, or I've heard that run the gamut on these sorts of things.
Whatever the reasoning is, yeah.
Like, you understand. Their developer budget is one of the complaints we've had for the longest time. You're making one of the best games, if not the best game ever produced by man. Just give it a little more love. They can't afford an algorithm sophisticated enough, to be within their budget, I guess. I mean, I'm sure WotC probably could if they put their mind to it. But I'm just saying, they're not devoting that much to their developers in the first place, right? So this is silly. This is silly.
That's a great point. I hadn't considered that. But you're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So in any event, we do have so at this point, DarkBone has kind of turned the corner a little bit, and a big part of that was the synthesizer drawing into some more action, being able to draw into the Fable, the Mirror Breaker initially, and then the chapter 2 on Fable, being able to rummage away 2 of those lands and get the Oni called Anvil. Exactly what they needed.
It turns out rummaging is good.
Rummaging's good.
I know you heard it here first, folks. Drawing new cards, even when you got to discard a few, is good because these are situations like this. I would venture a guess that DarkBone would be dramatically behind if not for being able to discard those extra couple of cards. Because look at the hand still. There are there are 5 cards on the battlefield that are lands, 2 treasures, 4 more lands in hand, and yet somehow DarkBone is the one that's the beatdown. DarkBone is beating down when they've drawn this many lands. Yeah, okay. Turns out rummaging is strong, folks.
Well, rummaging is strong. The synthesizer and 2 deadly disputes. They were able. I mean, the truth is, yes, that they've drawn a ton of lands, but the other side of that coin is they've drawn a ton of cards.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on there.
Yeah, and so that's they've drawn enough cards that like they couldn't help but get into some good stuff. And here they have Ob Nixilis coming down.
All right, I mean, lay it on me. How do you feel about Ob Nixilis?
Okay, my take on Ob. I feel like okay, fair enough. I thought when I first read the card, and this is what I'll admit I was a little wrong on. When I first read the card, I thought this thing's absolutely busted. It's going to be everywhere. This is going to take over the whole format. And now that we've had an opportunity to see it in action in standard, historic, all that jazz, I feel like it is a strong card that is tricky to deal with, but its impact is nowhere near where I thought it would be.
Correct.
That's,
and see,
yeah.
And admittedly, if you'll permit me, this is one that I was spot on.
Nice.
Because admittedly, it's one of the more high profile cards. It's one that I was constantly getting asked about. I'd develop a relatively, I'd give it a lot of thought, and it's one of those cards that's fantastic when you're ahead. And believe me, it's that. If you are ahead, you are almost exclusively winning the game when if you are able to get Ob Nixilis to resolve. but it's much worse when you're behind. And when you're evaluating Magic cards, there's a couple of key metrics. You need to evaluate this card. What does this card do when I'm ahead? What does this card do when I'm behind? What does this card do when it's in my opening hand? What does this card do when I pull it off the top of the library early? What does it happen what does it do when I pull it off the top late? There are going to be cards you don't want to see Llanowar Elves off the top of your deck late. Does that mean Llanowar Elves is bad? No, of course not. It's one of the strongest cards in Historic, and Historic is a really powerful format. But you need to evaluate that. Similarly, Ob Nixilis is a strong Magic card because of how good it is when you're ahead. It will slam the door. Your opponent's either losing a ridiculous amount of life or they're discarding a ridiculous number of cards, right? Both of those are great for you when you're ahead. If your opponent is beating you down with whatever, mono white or whatever the heck, and they're able to pressure your planeswalkers with creatures, it's not nearly as good, right? So for me, I love the card. I absolutely love it because it is great design space where it makes you build your deck in a certain way that, you know, allows you these slam the door moments, but also is entirely fair. So while I was waxing eloquent, the Wandering Emperor comes down. We've seen some of this card, have we not?
Oh, indeed.
And comes down, exiles a land. Creature lands can be really difficult to handle, but Wandering Emperor doesn't mind. Just get that thing right out of here. Now, you got to pick a seat. Is it Wandering Emperor and a creature land or two? A couple of cards in hand? Or is it 2 Ob Nixilis, a couple of devils and whatnot?
You know, and the City Stock Connoisseur was recently modified. I feel the need to, like, I will get to the question, I assure you. The City Stock Connoisseur just dropped, and it was recently modified so that it will not affect non-land cards in your hand. So what that just told Pablo is that DarkBone is sitting on 3 lands because no card was discarded.
Yep. I would have gone back and reread where I'm in Pablo's spot. Like, wait, they didn't discard anything. Oh. Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah, look at that.
That Voltage Surge is looking pretty good here. Yeah, so if I had to pick a seat at this moment, double Ob Nixilis versus a Wandering Emperor. I mean, I feel like we've reached a pretty good spot. I think the life total is kind of the tiebreaker in this situation. I do think this is still Darkbone's game, which is funny because, you know, if we had looked at the first, you know, the first 2 turns, I would have said there's no way Darkbone's coming back from this.
For real.
And, you know, and Pablo was able to do some good stuff, but it just wasn't able to, you know, they weren't able to produce enough early pressure to take advantage of kind of that slow start that Darkbone had. But here we are.
Folks, for those of you who are curious why they didn't just fire off the Voltage Surge's main, it was because they were waiting for that treasure token we made. So they didn't have to sacrifice either an attacker or the Oni Cult Anvil. Sure enough, Pablo recognizes this is good enough for GG and scoops it up. We're headed on to game 2. Now, the Rakdos deck, taking game 1, that's kind of where you want to be, right? Because I think the Rakdos deck has got to be at least a little bit of an underdog. And just looking at the sideboards, I think, you know, with all the interaction that is just in the main and being able to bring in even more interaction from the side, I have to feel like the sideboard of matches are at least somewhat in favor of the Esper deck. Admittedly, having not played this mirror, I can't say that for sure, but that's definitely the feeling I would get having played a lot of Magic. But they got game 1. All Rakdos has to do is steal either games 2 and 3, and even if it is a 60-40 matchup in favor of Esper, you get a 40% chance and then another 40% chance if you lose game 2, right?
Yeah, I mean that's not bad. I mean, you could do a lot worse than that. Yeah, that's for sure. Now, looking at the Esper midrange sideboard, the one card that really stands out as one that might impact this Rakdos list is Archon of Emeria. I have a feeling that one's probably going to be coming in. That's a 2 of in the sideboard because the Rakdos deck is leveraging such inexpensive spells. it's not uncommon for them to want to play multiples in a turn. And also the Archon states that all non-basics come in tapped, which is just like, you'd be surprised how often that's relevant.
For sure.
So I could see that being a pretty big impact. But other than that, I mean, Blood Chief's Thirst is also going to have plenty of targets that might be coming in from the sideboard.
Sure. The negates, because
Negates, I think, yeah.
there's only 4 or 8 main deck creatures. They're admittedly there are a couple Immersturm Predators. I'm not sure if those come in or not, but that's it, right? Everything else is a non-creature. So negate is essentially a free roll in this deck, I think, and unconditional 2-mana counters are quite strong.
It's pretty good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you can hit an anvil with that, like, it's you're golden.
Yeah.
Or a brushstroke for that matter. I mean, right, just looking at this hand, which DarkBone is assuredly going to mulligan, but I mean, you got the anvil, you got brushstroke, you have Lolth. Those are all great targets for negate.
And then they pull up a hand that's 2 Bloodtithe Harvesters and Deadly Dispute, couple of lands. Draws another land. Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, again, the land is not going to be an issue in this game.
For sure not. Okay. Pablo, clearly another slow hand. Bloodtithe Harvester comes down. That's one of the things about this card that just impresses me never-endingly is a lot of the time it's just 2-mana removal. Which is a fine rate. Like it's what you would expect, Doomblades and whatnot. But there are also times it's a 3/2. And a 2-mana 3/2 is a fine creature. Darn good in certain situations, right? And in a situation where Pablo's just sitting around, turning a 3/2 sideways is strong. But then, yeah, look at this. Pablo's got to fire off removal on their removal spell.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what they had to do. And now we don't know exactly. We don't have the luxury of seeing Pablo's hand, unfortunately. But say, for example, if Pablo had Rafine and DarkBone was able to play out the other Bloodtithe Harvester, they would create 2 blood tokens. They would then be able to sack the Harvester that was just killed, but assuming it had survived, they could then tap that, give Rafine -4/-4, and still have a mana to pay the ward cost on it.
Yeah.
And so that would have been a perfect answer to Rafine in that sequence, which I got to be honest, is like there are very few perfect answers to Rafine for 2 mana.
Yeah, Rafine's an annoying Magic card.
It sure is. That was the one that was the first card I read that had Connive on it. I believe it was the first one they spoiled. And I remember thinking, Connive X? Are you for real?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. And then I saw the other Connive cards where it was just this Connive. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I can live with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Connive X on Rafine is incredible. And it's got 4 toughness and ward 1 on a 3-drop. I mean, it's almost impossible to remove. It's
Well, and it's easy to read the stat line and feel like, yeah, but the body, right?
Sure.
No, that's not my experience with this card. This is not a 1/4. This is like a 5/7 or whatever the heck.
Right.
5/8 or whatever.
Well,
attacking you the next turn. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, Rafine is incredible. That was one where, like, I got that one right. Like, I looked at that one and was like, okay, that thing's gonna be incredible. And yeah, that's been proven to be the case. We see it in Standard, we see it in Alchemy here. I've even seen some historic lists with it in there. I mean, the card is just that good.
How do you feel about this pre-combat? Is it because they're expecting the Wandering Emperor? Is that what they're playing around here, presumably?
Possibly.
Because the opponent did have 4 mana and just conspicuously leave it untapped.
Indeed. I think that's probably exactly what's going on there. I mean, if I were in their position, I probably would have swung and made them have it. But if they did have it, that would leave DarkBone in a pretty nasty position.
Okay, but this is still not that bad. The negate coming in clutch, just like we said.
Yep, absolutely.
But somehow DarkBone still resolves a Planeswalker.
It's the joy of casualty. The thing copies on the stack. So it's it's pretty crazy. Yeah, so the negate only hits 1, which is pretty fortunate for DarkBone there. And in that situation, Pablo even had he still had 2 mana up. So, I mean, to be fair, there are only 2 negates in the sideboard. So the chances of there being another one, very low. But you never know. This is going to happen.
For sure.
All right, so Nadar has entered the fray here on Pablo's side. and they are choosing which dungeon to venture through. Or no, they're in Phandelver. I'm sorry. They were choosing which chamber to go into. All right.
Goes with the treasure. Do they have the second negate, or is this removal? Is it Infernal Grasp, Vanishing Verse, negate?
Doesn't appear to be in the gate because that Sanguine Brushstroke came down with
in a
some
heart.
delay. Yeah.
Or is there a 5-drop? Am I missing a 5-drop here? Is it Leisure?
Ooh. That is a card that I gotta say, I love the fact that she's getting some play these days because I think that card is absolutely fantastic. The fact that it's a 4/5 flying angel with lifelink for 5 rather, that is just casually a Leyline of the Void that also returns your creatures to hand at end of turn if they die. Like, I don't know, the amount of value that's crammed onto that card is unreal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I got that one wrong because I thought it was gonna be better. I'm still not ready to concede that. I think it's underplayed. The card is so stinking good.
It's so good. No, when we came into this match and or we came into a match earlier that I don't remember if it was DarkBone or if it was the other, if it was I believe it was Pablo actually, and they had Liace on the board. I was like, yes, the card seeing play. I'm so happy. There it is. Sure enough,
it was. We called it. Got him.
Excellent. Yeah, sure enough, that Meathook Massacre is not looking particularly great. And even Lolth, who's usually exceptional at picking off flyers, can't quite tangle with that 5 toughness.
No.
Infernal Grasp, however, will do the job. Yeah.
You gotta fire it off.
100%.
They have another one. Darn it. That's inconvenient. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate. But anyway, folks, the additional text on Leisure is whenever another non-token creature you control dies, return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So it really, it's a must-answer threat. And for me, when I saw this originally coming into Standard, I was like, man, that just matches up so great against all these Goldspan Dragon piles. Turns out Goldspan Dragon is just a stupid card. So I blame Goldspan Dragon. I don't blame Leisure. The card's still great. Goldspan Dragon.
Absolutely.
There's whatever. I may not be better.
There's so many great cards that have been overshadowed by cards like Goldspan Dragon. That's just like, what are you gonna do? It is what it is.
Yeah, it looks like City Stalker Connoisseur coming down, taking out Lolth. Boy, could you have picked a better hit?
Yeah, I don't think so. That was golden.
And looks like a devil being made with the Ob Nixilis taking down. Somehow this Ob Nixilis still hanging out, just doing its thing. Oh, okay.
There's your fiend.
So I was about to ask, do you think you would have activated the Hive of the Eye Tyrant? That does make things awkward for blocks, right?
Indeed. Yeah, I think I think playing Rafine here makes sense because you're going to give the opportunity for the City Stalker Connoisseur to connive. I mean, if they didn't have the removal, but you also force them to hit the removal on the Rafine, not the attacker. So that's pretty nice. But other than that, the Hive I think actually would have been a fine choice as well to get additional pressure in, to either go after the life total or hopefully knock off Ob Nixilis here, because that little guy is. I mean, if you're Pablo, you're sitting with 3 cards in hand and 11 life. It's not quite where you want to be.
No, it's true. Yeah, more chump blocking. And the stinking Blood Artist. Telling you, that card always causing problems. Always just hanging out over there, and it never attacks. So you can't settle the wreckage and stuff. No, I'm not bitter.
No, of course not. Clearly. Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh, Vanishing Verse. Okay. Vanishing Verse on the second Rush Stroke.
Rush Stroke. Why?
I think I would have gone after the artist there.
Yeah, why not the artist?
That's a fine question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure their line of reasoning there.
There's no.
They must have some other answer for it, but I'm not sure what that is.
But there's no blood tokens.
Right. Yeah, and they had no way of knowing that the Harvester was going to be coming down.
Yeah, I don't. And like I say, I'm not calling it a misplay. I'm just trying to figure out why, right? Because it's strongly possible Pablo had a good reason for firing it off then, and we just don't know what it is. So I'm trying to figure that out, right?
Yeah, they may have another piece of creature-based removal that can take out the artist, but yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, there has to have been, or there has to be a. Maybe they were thinking that the Blood Artist would be forced to block soon by attacking with both if they want to keep Ob around. But as long as the Anvil's on the field and there are incidental permanents to sacrifice to it, that's just not going to be the case.
Yeah, at least a little bit awkward, if not quite awkward.
Indeed.
Lolth goes away by the exile trigger. Obnixilus just giving up. No reason to forfeit their board position here. I agree with that decision. This Oni Cult Anvil is going to make hay with your life total because the Blood Artist is still out there.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I believe DarkBone has lethal this turn if they sacrifice the construct to the Oni Cult Anvil, get a ping, create another construct by an artifact.
Yeah, you just meet her for X equals 0, right? Oh.
I was thinking if they had done that first. Oh wait, does Blood Artist count itself? Because if that's the case, then
it does.
Oh, then this
yeah,
should do
this
the
is
job.
also fine.
Yeah,
I guess it's one of those times where it doesn't really matter how you go about it. If you've got them, you've got them, and
yeah.
Oh boy, you got them. And Pablo, unfortunately, recognizing this reality as we speak, and boom, there we go. I think, given the correct draw, Nyrune slam dunks. Given anything outside of the correct draw, I think Rakdos will grind better. So if I will say Nyrunes takes it down because they get both trample and lifelink often enough in the match to bring it down. If they do not get both trample and lifelink, I think the Rakdos player will take it. But my bet's on the runes. So that's we'll see. How about you?
I think you're probably right. And I think that's exactly right. Well, and Shylax here on runes, starting with the Kami of Transience, definitely applying trample to the board right away, which is nice. But I think you're right. Trample gets around those chump blocks that the Rakdos deck definitely wants to establish with those little construct tokens, and the Kiki Jiki tokens and whatnot. So we definitely want to take advantage of those, which trample completely negates. And then the lifelink, because when your opponent is pinging away your life total over and over again with cards like Obnixilus or Blood Artist, if you're just gaining back 7-8 life, or as we've seen with this deck, 12-15 life a turn, you don't really care. You can have your opponent can ping you all day. But I gotta say, DarkBone has done a phenomenal job of drawing some key pieces of removal early to get rid of the Kami of Transience, and then also having an opportunity to take out this this Jukai Naturalist with a Voltage Surge before it has an opportunity to get any bigger. And notably, it did have the Rune of Might as well as its own lifelink. So it had trample and lifelink on that one body.
Did indeed. Now, admittedly, Kami Transience returning to hand, and Shylax has about 340 cards. I counted, but I'm not great at math. I would like to point out, folks, there's predictions in the chat. So definitely make sure to put your prediction out for who you expect to win. Put those channel points where your mouth is. All right. Make this thing a little spicy. Looks like Generous Visitor comes out of the hand, as does Kami of Transience. Looks like we're attacking in with the treasure-producing Goblin. All these things are to be expected. And is it Meathook? It is Meathook Massacre. How do you feel about Meathook X equals 2 here?
I feel like it's kind of what you have to do. It's kind of unfortunate because you want the Blood Artist to stick around, but at the same time, we've all seen what can happen if a Generous Visitor and a Kami of Transience together on the field is terrifying. So I can understand needing to get that off the board and do whatever it takes. But here, Shylax is following up the Runeforge Champion. I mean, there's always another answer. Shylax just has another body consistently.
For sure. Now, admittedly, the life totals are relevant here. It's 29 to 8, folks. It's 29 to 8. DarkBone has really applied some serious pressure, but oh my goodness. Here's haste and a rune sustenance, which means haste and lifelink. And crashing in for 3 is no. I mean, this is not a meaningfully impactful swing, but it kind of is. Going from 8 to 11 is much difference as far as the whole not dying thing. As far as the winning thing, there's a ways to go yet. But
yep, a little bit. But yeah, the whole not dying thing is where you got to start. Oh my goodness. And DarkBone again drawing lands after lands. How many lands are in this deck actually? I'm curious now.
23.
23. That seems like a fine number for this list.
Well, and I mean, we do have to keep in mind that the average CMC is about, 0.01 or something. Like, it's very, very low. There's Deadly Disputes, there's Voltage Surges, Deadly Dispute 2, Voltage Surge 1, Infernal Grasp 2, Meathook Massacre. Technically, I don't know, what, a 4-drop typically?
Yeah, 4 or 5 a lot of time. Yeah. Yeah.
Then there's the Fable of Mirror Breaker, which is 3, Sanguine Brushstroke, which is 3, Experimental Frenzy is 1, Oni Cult Anvil is 2, Voldaren Epicure is 2, Blood Tithe Harvester is 2. Or I'm sorry, Voldaren Epicure is 1. Please forgive me, misspeak. And then up next is the Adversary is 3. So this thing tops out essentially at 3 plus Meathook Massacre, wherever you slot that in. And then it gets a little larger in the board, but 23 lands to cast 2-drops is kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. This could probably go down to 22 or even 21 and still feel pretty comfortable.
But why? Why bother, right? With all this looting and stuff? It's one of the great things about that stupid that fantastic.
That lovely saga that we all know and love oh so much from Kamigawa, yes.
And all the blood tokens as well, right? And here we go, just like we were talking about, the pseudo haste that this can grant. Blood Tithe Harvester comes off the top, and Reflections of Kiki-Jiki is removing that life-linking, hasting champion that we were saying is so threatening here. Admittedly, the fact that Shylax is now up to 13 with Showdown of the Scalds. Now, is that a magic card?
That's a magic card, all right. Yeah, it's very similar to a card from Eldraine called Escape to the Wilds, which you may remember from the banned and restricted announcement a while back. Yeah, it's pretty darn good. It's yeah. No, Showdown of the Skulls is fantastic. I can't tell you how many times like I've been playing a game and like, okay, I've got this. I've got my opponent on the ropes. We're doing the beatdown, and they just top deck Showdown. It's like, well, I lose. Like it's just it can swing a game so fast.
Remember a really, really long time ago. Remember, like this was we're ancient history. Try and jog your memory here. But remember when Shylax was at 8 life? It was like Shylax is fighting to keep their head above water, and it's almost a foregone conclusion that Shylax is about to die and all that sort of thing.
I do recall something about that. Yes, I do. That sounds very familiar.
JohnLikesGames remembers, Yeah. Yeah. But I'm telling you, folks, that this runes deck, it has legs. It can go the distance, given the opportunity to do so, right?
Oh yeah.
And here's this trample coming in clutch. Kami Transients. Boy, oh boy, that's a magic card, isn't it? How many times has this Kami died? This is the same Kami, folks, and it just keeps coming back.
I think, I want to say twice, 3 times now. Like it just you can't keep it down. It's just much like the runes deck. Like we've seen this runes deck in other tournaments, in other in past weeks and months, where it just maybe doesn't quite have a showing, and then the next week all of a sudden it is just dominant. And it just you cannot keep this deck down. It refuses to be ignored. And another showdown.
All right, if you have children in the room, folks,
cover their eyes. This is not
be aware. This was a game for a period of time, and it stopped being a game a few minutes ago here. Sure enough, DarkBone agrees with us, allowing Shylax affording Shylax the opportunity to just go to sideboard rather than follow through with all of the grotesque and horrible, not safe for work style things that were happening on that side of the board, and heading into sideboard. How do you feel about sideboarding in this matchup, though, between runes and the Rakdos deck?
I mean, the thing that's tricky about going up against the runes deck is if you don't have hand disruption, counter spells, or like hand disruption, counter spells, even like it almost feels like you almost need graveyard hate to go up against this thing because the Kami. Like it's just how do you deal with it? And in Rakdos specifically, I mean, in looking at this list, I don't really know, because one of the things that I thought for the longest time was, just run removal. That's what just need to run removal. But the problem is you can never have enough against the runes deck. The number of threats that they can mobilize and how quickly those threats grow, really no matter what combination they come in, is really what makes that deck sing. So like if you don't have an Archon of Emeria in the sideboard, I don't know what you put in against the stack. I mean,
And that's precisely the way I feel about it as well. I think, for the record, I I'm not calling for bannings or anything like that,
sure,
but I'm
sure.
just saying it is a very, very strong list because of the axes it attacks on. Like,
Mhm.
oftentimes, let's say mono red. There have been times when bannings have been warranted in mono red, just because the cards that the whole 1+1+1+1+1+1, and it starts to get out of hand, and it's just there's just too many tools. But at the end of the day, you're counting to 20, and if they do it too quickly, you drop a ban.
Mhm.
And if you can maybe gain a little life or whatever, there's just whatever you can handle that. The problem with the runes deck is that it attacks on so many different axes that, from one angle, it's enchantments and stuff. Well, okay, just run a disenchant, why don't you? It's been around since alpha. Sort it out.
Yeah. Disenchant is in standard. Nobody runs it. It's yeah.
It is. But they replace themselves. So now you're at card disadvantage. And they don't. This isn't one of those Boggles decks where one enchantment is Daybreak Coronet, growing it a large amount or whatever, giving it all kinds of things. It's this cumulative effect where there's 3 or 4 enchantments that are doing something. And then it's the casting a million spells with Generous Visitors or the Showdown of the Scalds. And there's this Storm style feel, but it's still a beatdown deck. You're still turning creatures sideways. And I don't know, man.
Right? Yeah.
It's just so tough.
And I've had so many times when I was thinking about it, it's like it can't be that hard. Just run some removals, some Infernal Grasp, some Vanishing Verses to get rid of like Generous Visitors. You should be fine, right? No, it just doesn't do the job. Because here we have a power word kill going. And to be fair, I mean, DarkBone is running a lot of removal. That's how they got Shylax to 8 so quickly in that last match. And that Meathook Massacre was clutch to try to just stay in the game. But in the end, it just wasn't enough. The number of I think the key for the runes deck is the number of one of the keys, like you're saying, they do everything so well. One of the keys is just how quickly they draw cards and how many cards they see, because each one of those runes cantrips, when it enters the battlefield, they just draw a card, and then Showdown draws them 4 fresh cards. Like, it's just, I mean, we saw that there where Shylax had a huge board that they had established and also a huge grip of cards in their hand. I mean, it was just a clinic on card advantage. And
Ooh. But Shylax is missing land drops now.
that's true. That is
so
that's a big deal.
Is there lethal now? Is there lethal this turn with the Meathook Massacre that just came off the top? Because Oni Cult Anvil can sacrifice the experimental synthesizer into a land.
Okay.
Down to 11. You can attack, take 1 down to 10.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Do you still do it? Because then you just run out another experimental frenzy, I guess, or experimental different card, folks. Yeah. Different set. Long ago. I'm sorry, I'm an old man. Please forgive me. But
experimental frenzy, but yeah, different story for another day.
Down to 2.
With the Den of the Bugbear online.
With the Den of the Bugbear. Oh, okay. No. That's a key thing, because we did pull a land off the top. Oh boy. Not lethal, right? Or is it? No, it is, because
it is now. Yep.
The other Oni Cult Anvil. Oh my goodness. All right. So
wow.
Misses a couple of land drops, and that is good enough. Turns out Rakdos is strong. All right. So good news. DarkBone back in the game. Bad news. Runes on the play.
Yeah, that is pretty scary.
Pick a seat. Pick a seat. You got to do it.
Oh no. I mean, I think if I had my money on this one, like if I had to put money down, I'd probably go runes. I think that deck is just it has an advantage in this matchup. It's just stronger. Meaning no offense to the Rakdos deck, because clearly it can play. But we saw that game, that was incredible, and the Meathook Massacre just ending it on the spot there was very impressive. And they seem to be off to a good start. However, Shylax is starting with the Generous Visitor down on 1 into a Jukai Naturalist on 2. That's a pretty sweet setup.
It really is. It really is. And oh well, yeah, no, that's awkward. Actually, I was gonna say, Fable and Mirror Breaker being able to come down, things like that, but like, no, we're not on the play.
Mm-hmm.
So Fable and Mirror Breaker isn't until next turn, not this turn.
And that's if they go with Fable the Mirror Breaker rather than Sanguine Brushstroke. Both are
Correct.
both
And
are
both
fine choices, I think. I mean,
agreed.
yeah.
All right. Oh no. Well, remember we were talking. We were advocating for 2 very specific keywords,
Yep. We sure were.
and they have been assembled.
Mhm.
The life totals, which isn't necessarily indicative of winning or losing in the game of Magic, but they are relevant in this case. 24-12 in favor of the Runes player who's only just getting started, folks. When you untap with the Naturalist, with a Generous Visitor, I don't care what cards are in your hand, it's about to get ugly, almost exclusively. Boy.
Absolutely. And here comes yet another Jukai Naturalist. For some reason, an enchantment creature, therefore triggering Generous Visitor. I mean,
9
9
power,
trample
5 of it
damage.
life linking.
Oof.
27. That's going to be a difficult life total to ping out. Deadly Dispute. Get this party started. Make another dude. Draw some cards. It's a land. And a removal spell that's meaningless. Well,
I
darn
mean,
it.
the Voltage Surge can theoretically get rid of the Visitor here if you sack the Blood Token, but
But then you're still dying to the 5/5, right?
true. Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. Blood Artist doing work. Oh, boy. DarkBone saying probably a few choice words and probably some prayers among them because, good heavens, it's about to get ugly. And oh no, no removal.
Yep, no removal, and the Runeforge champion enters the battlefield. It pulls a rune out of the library, and if Shylax has another rune in hand or is able to draw one off of this Rune of Might play, then they have an opportunity to storm off here effectively. And here comes the Rune of Speed. Oof.
Boom. That's it, actually, right?
I think so.
Because that all they needed was one more power or one more attacker. That provided both. And now there's, the Blood Artist triggers are irrelevant here, folks, because if you die, you're dead. Nothing happens on the stack, right?
Yeah, that's correct because it's not, if it was lifelink, then it would be, if it was, then you would get it during combat. I mean, not that Blood Artist has power, but lifelink matters. However, triggers after damage is dealt does not. And so yeah, if you're dead prior to those triggers going off, then you will not get that life.
It's true. Now, admittedly, I did misspeak. That is absolutely my fault, folks. I had forgotten that the Oni Cult Anvil still does the drainy thing on their turn. You don't get the 1/1, so it's not as good. You don't want to activate it on their turn, but it did keep them alive. I don't expect it's going to keep them alive much longer. Admittedly, the outcome still roughly the same,
Still
but
not looking good, but yeah, exactly. Oh, and they're gonna get lifelink on the Runeforge champion just for good measure.
yeah,
For no mana at that.
yeah, for free. Oh. How do you feel about lifelink? How do you feel about double lifelink? Oh boy.
Yeah, that Infernal Grasp is looking pretty tame. Yeah.
Yeah. Gonna drain just enough to stay alive. Again, admittedly, fighting the good fight, trying to staying alive, all that
They're
stuff.
holding on. Yeah, DarkBone's holding on like a champ here, but yeah. I mean, to what end is the question.
Catilda is lethal all on its own. There's also trampling threats that are doing very scary things. Can you do enough sacrificing that you can live through a Catilda? No.
It doesn't look like it. Yep.
Ah, boy. Well, I'll admit I called it about a turn and a half too early, but unfortunately, I did call it correctly. If you're sitting in DarkBone's seat, a little bit of disappointment to go along with it, but congratulations, serious congratulations to all of our top 8 competitors and DarkBone specifically for making it all the way into the finals. Shylax, though, bringing home the grand prize and taking down first place. Congratulations to our Runes player, Shylax, for defeating all the competition and taking it all the way home.
Now those were some exciting games. Congratulations to our winner, Shylax, for taking down the event with Naya Runes. I want to give a big shout out as well to our commentary team, JohnLikesGames, and Hamhocks42 for doing commentary on the top 8. And I want to thank you, the viewer, for getting this far into the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment down below, and even subscribe to the channel. Would be greatly appreciated. We're going to have a bunch of links down below in the description, deck lists, content, and even our tournament for next week. So definitely check all that out, and I hope that you stay cheesy.